So we introduced Olly, who has been just nominated for a BAFTA and is here tonight. Very, very amazing thing.
So I don't know if Ludo mentioned, but I'm nominated for a BAFTA. Yeah? So again, a BAFTA. Yeah? She's more excited about it than I am. Listen, thank you very much for coming. I really want to thank Ludo, who's a friend and who I tried to get out of this 3 times, and she always said, yeah, you can not come. But it'd be really great if you came. So I'm really glad to be here, and it's a very fascinating, and it's really made me think just in the 24 hours I've been here. So look, tonight I want to show. This is a kind of I think we're going to call it a world premiere. We're going to show 2 films that have been seen before, but they've never been seen together. So it's a bit of a cheat, but I'm going to call it the world premiere. Welcome, and. This is first of all, be very quick, and then we're gonna watch it. I was sent by Channel 4 in the UK and also PBS in Boston, in America, to make a documentary about the situation in Syria. And as I often say to students, is that I'm always looking for, in a film, I'm looking to try and find the smallest window with the biggest view. Those tiny, tiny stories that can reveal the very, very big picture. And I wanted to make a film that showed how ordinary people were being divided along sectarian and religious lines. And in northern Syria was a valley called the Orontes River Valley that used to live peacefully together with Shia and Sunni and Alawites. But with the civil war, it had become divided, where Sunnis were on one side, Alawites on the other, and the river in the middle divided these 2 peoples. Suddenly, the source of all their income had become a frontier that they couldn't cross. So this was, for me, a perfect prism through which to look at the whole conflict. So I made 2 journeys to Syria. Firstly, to the rebel side, where the Sunni rebels lived, and I lived there for 3 weeks and witnessed firsthand what they were going through. But then to cross the 1 mile across the river to the other village, the Alawite village, it was actually a kilometre, but I had to make a 4,500 mile round trip back through Turkey to London, and then fly to Beirut, get a taxi to Damascus in Syria, and then get an escort up into Idlib province, and then to the precise place that was 1 kilometre where I'd been. And I filmed the whole conflict from a different point of view, from the opposite point of view. And we made this into a 50-minute documentary for television. But one thing happened during that filming that was very dramatic, and you will see it in a moment. But whenever we tried to edit this event, it was very difficult, because actually the rushes, the raw material, were incredibly powerful, and they almost didn't need editing. And so my editor said, we should just put this on YouTube, just the rushes. And in the end, we decided to put on YouTube 36 minutes of almost entirely uncut, unedited footage. And I just narrated what was happening. And this provided a completely different perspective on precisely the same event. And tonight, I want to show both these films together. First, you'll see the film that is unedited, or less edited, and then we want to show the film that is totally edited, and be very interested to know your responses. So we're going to play that in a moment. One note is that in the finished film, there are actually commercial breaks, so there'll be 2 moments of nothing for 20 seconds, but it's okay.
I would like to invite Olly Lambert to come here and answer a couple of questions. I can see that the audience is pretty... No, I don't think they're asleep. Yeah, so this is a pretty extraordinary document. As you could see, the footage that was shot in the first part was also repeated in the second part, some of it, but in an edited way. So I would like to ask Olly, why did we choose to show these 2 films and what do they have, what is different, and why did we want to show it like that?
Well, I hope that the differences are obvious in a way, but what's interesting for me is that the main film, the second film, was what I'm sort of trained in producing these kind of very structured, polished pieces with music and commentary that helps you. But in a strange way, just the narration of the rushes, in its very messy, chaotic way, with very simple hand holding of the audience, gave a completely different experience of the same material. And I still don't know which film I prefer really, but they function in very different ways. So we thought it'd be interesting to put those two together. I quite liked the way it returned at the end and showed you a sort of much more mediated version of the same material, I suppose. But I'd be interested to know if anyone here had any thoughts about that, or any strong feelings either way. No.
Does the audience want to ask anything?
When did you do the voice first?
So the question is, when did I do the voice of the first piece? It was just a very simple process, because when the first bomb landed, I had just started filming really, and I just changed both cards on the camera, so I had 2 hours of storage, and I had a new battery on. So I knew I was good to run for 2 hours. So I basically didn't cut at all, and ended up with one 70-minute clip that was all the rubbish in between, and then I'd find a shot, and then the rubbish in between. So when it came to the voice, all I did was play the clip with headphones on and a microphone in front of me and just talked. I didn't prepare anything. But then I timed it so I knew what I was talking about later on, and we just moved it around a little bit and just took out long sequences where I'm on a motorbike or something. But it was a very casual process, and actually I feel that the kind of casual, quite quiet voice works very well. Actually, it's not dramatic. It's just trying to contextualize and explain what's going on. No, it was months after the filming. Yeah, months. I think Yeah, we released. We did it with PBS. It was done as a kind of just a supporting bit of material. With PBS, yeah. I mean, we made it in like 3 days. It was really quite straightforward, but we didn't expect it to have so much interest. I mean, I think more people watched the online film, that first film. About 500,000 people saw it on YouTube, and about 450,000 people watched the UK version when it was broadcast on Channel 4. So I think we're all very sort of surprised by that, really. Yeah, I've got mixed feelings about both. I mean, I think that one is much more visceral. I think the first one, the bombing of Al-Bara, is a really it's a much more, in a strange way, though it's simpler to make, it's a much more complex bit of work from a sort of filmmaking perspective, in terms of who you are as a viewer and who I am as a director and narrator, and I'm part of the story, and yet it's about them. You know, it's much more complicated, and there's a lot more convention to the second film, but the second film explains a lot more about the sort of micro story of two men or two villages that reveals a great deal about the wider conflict. So they function in completely different ways, and I think it's really interesting that effectively it's the same material, but they just function like they're completely different beasts, you know, with a very different response. And in a strange way, the second one I feel is like a safer film. It's a safer film for the viewer. It's far less challenging to watch, even though the footage is very graphic. But it's a safer watch because it's much more third person. There's an authority to it. There's a voiceover that's got kind of command, and it's very structured, and the shots are very precise, and so it's much more familiar to a viewer. Yeah.
any questions?
Yeah, at the back there, yeah.
You showed the video on YouTube, yes? And I guess you browsed through the comments on the video. And we all know what happens on YouTube comments, but did you pick up any particular one?
I didn't, actually, I did look at it once. I mean, I didn't get that, I wasn't really that bothered about it. I mean, someone said that my camera work wasn't very good, which really pissed me off. I think it was when I sort of stopped. And one man said that he wanted me to marry his daughter. That was quite interesting. Someone said it was a fake, I remember that. It was all staged. And at that point you think that, well, this is a sort of nonsense conversation, really, you know. So I didn't really get involved in that, actually. I did do a Reddit in conversation. There was actually, I hadn't heard of Reddit. No, AMA? Ask Me Anything. I did one of those. And that was really interesting. People asked some really smart questions and it went on for hours, and I did my best to answer it. So we really tried, on PBS Frontline, who were the American broadcasters of this, worked very hard in a sort of outreach way to, you know, encourage not just viewers, but a sort of national or even international debate about the conflict and what it means, and our involvement or lack of involvement in it. So they really went for it. So AMA, Reddit, the YouTube thing, I mean, we sort of went to town on it, really. And I mean, it did very well. I mean, it's been watched in the White House, and it's kind of been seen, which is obviously very satisfying. But I think, yeah, there's a sort of vortex of horror, those YouTube comments, really. I mean, it's like Facebook, isn't it? But maybe you could read them and get back to me. Oh yeah, so have any of the participants seen it? Yeah, absolutely. In fact, Abdul Kader, who was my fixer, he's got it downloaded on his iPad, and he's actually been back to that area and he's shown it to all of them. I'm in touch with Ahmed on Facebook a lot. He absolutely loves it. I don't know whether Ali Ghazi, the regime commander, has seen it. I have no way of contacting him. I could never get his phone number even when I was there, so I don't know what their response is. But on the rebel side, no, it's Jamal Maroof, the commander, is keen to meet again. So yeah, they're very appreciative. I thought there'd be a problem with people knowing or discovering that I'd gone to the other side, but that really hasn't. I've had nothing negative back from people. I know that Yassir, who is Ahmed's local commander, he's the guy who's not able to fire the rocket launcher. He was killed about 2 weeks ago by Al-Qaeda in some sort of local fight. But apart from that, I think everyone's sort of safe and well. Well, not safe, probably not well actually, but they're alive. Yeah, so it's been there's no negative. I would make a habit of always showing people films that I make sure they see it in advance if possible. So the question is, how do I position? How did I explain it at the time?
Yeah, before you actually started filming, what did you tell them you were actually going to do in the show?
So the question is, what did I tell people I was going to do? I'm absolutely as honest as I can be with people about what I'm doing, and mainly because people just smell it if you're not. The only thing I didn't tell people was that I didn't reveal that I was going to film on the other side, mainly for my own safety, actually, and also for the safety of the people that I was with, because if I was filming someone and there was a suspicion that I might be going as a spy to another side, then that person I'm filming would be complicit with me. So it's too complicated. I explained very clearly that I was coming to live with them to document what was taking place in their lives. And I would always say that I was very interested in making my films, whether they're in areas of conflict or not, tend to focus on ordinary people in extraordinary situations, whether that's an immigrant arriving in London or a young man getting caught up in a civil war. And people understood that very, very quickly. So I was very, very candid about what I was doing. And in fact, they understood. Sometimes they were more blunt than I could be with them. In fact, Ahmed, very early on when I met him, said, am I going to be the hero of your film? And I said, well, I wouldn't use that word, but I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm looking for a central character. And, you know, he was just always in the middle of events, so he was a natural person. And he's I mean, I love him, I think he's a really likeable chap. But I was very, very frank about what I was doing, and I would explain why I would need certain shots in certain places, and, you know, explaining to Ahmed why I needed shots of him at his dad's garage, just pictures of him fixing a motorbike. I explained it was to establish that he was not always some beardy, weirdy nut job running around with an AK-47. He was also a young man who, and they understand this logic, they understand the grammar very much, so there's never a problem with that.
One last question.
So am I planning to return? I mean, not immediately. I mean, I did look into it, going back to Syria at the end of last year. It's just too dangerous. It's stratospherically more dangerous than it was when I was there. As a Westerner, I'd almost certainly be kidnapped, you know, within days. So, and if I tried to go back to Khan Safra, where I was mainly based, I've heard from a number of people that even though Al-Qaeda, well, Jabhat al-Nusra and ISIS, these two big factions with much more jihadist sort of tendencies, they would undoubtedly send people to get me. And there's about 50, you know, foreigners, NGO workers and journalists kidnapped at the moment in northern Syria, and I don't want to be one of them. So at the minute it's just too dangerous. It will change, I'm sure, but at the moment the sort of anti-Western jihadist groups are just too strong. It's just not worth it. Anyway, I think we must stop. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks.